So in this video, I'll be giving you my Super League Round 2 predictions. Now, unfortunately, Wigan won't be playing against Leeds this weekend. However, because there's a World Club Challenge, I'll be giving you my prediction for that as a replacement instead for Wigan versus Penrith. So stay tuned for that one. In terms of a quick recap for last week, I got 4 out of 6. I incorrectly predicted that Leeds would beat Huddersfield and that Warrington would beat Catalans. Some strange performances in there last week and some things to kind of maybe consider about sin bins and sending it off, but we'll get into this week's predictions, try and get 6 out of 6, and with a bit more information on what these teams look like, we'll see how we do. So let's get started on the first game. Kicking things off for round 2, we have Kingston Rovers at home versus Leeds Rhinos. Starting with league position, Hull KR sit in 3rd, Leeds sit in 6th. In terms of last week's game, Hull KR beat Hull FC and Leeds Rhinos beat the Salford Red Devils. In terms of power rankings, I have Hull KR sitting in 3rd right now and Leeds Rhinos in 5th. So I am leaning towards Hull KR at the moment. I do feel that this is a somewhat balanced game. I don't think it's balanced enough to suggest that Leeds are going to win this one. They absolutely can, of course. You know, if you look at the roster that they've got, the personnel suggests that they can compete with most teams in this league, including Hull Kingston Rovers. So on paper, Leeds could really put in a strong performance. But from last week, based on the fact that maybe they weren't as advantageous against Salford as they probably should have been, especially in the period where they were a man up, and even conceding a try at that point suggests to me that there's a bit of instability in that team still. And of course, they're going to be a bit rusty, learning things as they go with a brand new spine. But I think Lockie Miller, I was a little bit on the fence about him, but he showed some really good signs in the first round, and he's hopefully going to continue to grow and be effective for Leeds. But with everyone else being new, it's going to take some time, but Leeds are kind of a team, they're a bit inconsistent, but sometimes they have weeks where they just ascend well above expectations. And, you know, this could be one of those weeks. But overall, in terms of balance, I think both are decent defensively, Hull KR more so. I think in attack, both decent, Hull KR more so. So in terms of the gap, I don't think it's astronomical. But I do think there's a real challenge to be had here. I think the bookies have Hull KR as like 6.5 point favourites. I'm just going slightly over that, because I think in terms of the rust that's coming from Leeds, what we saw from Hull KR, I know they only played against a, you know, pretty poor and ill-disciplined Hull FC team, but it kind of reinforced how we saw Hull KR last season, and Leeds still feel a little bit the same as last season, of course with changes to how the team feels, but for me it kind of feels like it would have done last year. So in terms of a score for this game, I am leaning towards Hull KR, so I'm going to go with Hull Kingston Rovers 24, Leeds Rhinos 16. Next up, we have London Broncos at home versus Catalans Dragons. Starting with league position, London sit in 12th, Catalans sit in 5th. In terms of matches last week, London lost at St Helens, Catalans beat Warrington Wolves. In terms of my power rankings, London are also in 12th, but Catalans Dragons are in 4th for me. Now, this is another tough game for London. There is potentially an upside to this kind of start, in that if they're playing so many tough teams early on, and they've played 2 of the toughest you could possibly get, not including Wigan so far, of course, but playing against 2 tough teams, one's really efficient in attack in St Helens, and one's typically quite efficient in defence in Catalans. Maybe by the time London play a team that's a little bit shaky, like a Warrington, Hull or Castleford that I've got near the bottom of the power rankings, that they might find more ways to chip at those teams because they've learned so much early on, and they get used to the pace of the game a lot quicker because they've been thrown in the deep end, you know. So sink or swim kind of situation for London here. I don't think there's going to be any major changes to last week. I think they'll find it very difficult to score. Catalans are a fantastic defensive outfit, and in attack against Warrington last week, Catalans looked pretty quick. It wasn't perfect by any means. A little bit shaky on the last tackle a couple times, but given that they were able to find points with a man down, stay in the game, still kind of dominate at times through the middle, weren't exactly ill-disciplined. Of course, there was a sending off, and there were some penalties given, but in terms of, say, like jumping the gun for offsides, things like that, and knock-ons, I don't recall seeing too many. It was pretty good on the side of Catalans from what I recall. I could be wrong on that, but I just remember them being quite good discipline-wise not including high challenges. But that's gonna keep Catalans going again and again and not giving constant field position and the ball to London to try and wear them down. I think even we've seen from the game against Warrington that Catalans aren't an easy team to wear down anyway, even with a man down. So Catalans should find it quite easy to run away with this one. I'm not gonna back London this week to score points because I cannot see it. I couldn't really see it against Saints, but I backed them anyway, and they managed to do it. But against Catalans, I can't see it. I can't see them letting it happen, given how strong they were last week in defence with 12. London could pull something out of the bag in a random moment like they did against Saints, but for me, Catalans way too strong. I think they're 19.5 point favourites on Bet365, so I would be very tempted to take the minus handicap on that one for Catalans, but I'm going to go with London Broncos 0, Catalans Dragons 36. Next up, we have the Warrington Wolves at home versus Hull FC. Starting with league position, Warrington sit in 8th, Hull FC sit in 10th. In terms of last week, Warrington lost to Catalans Dragons, Hull FC lost to Hull Kingston Rovers. In terms of my power rankings, I have Warrington in 9th, Hull FC in 10th. This one is a little bit of a tricky one because both of these teams quite clearly are close to garbage. Very close. And I say that as a YF fan. Very close to garbage. The more and more I think about the fact that Warrington couldn't score enough points, a man up for a whole half, it's just embarrassing, really. The more and more I think about it, the more embarrassing it gets, the more pathetic it is. There were some good things, and I did mention in my power rankings video that I think defensive-wise for Warrington, it's okay. It looks okay, but I think it's still going to have its shaky moments. And that's why I think this will be not necessarily a high-scoring game, nothing crazy, but I think both teams will put up a solid number of points, and it'll be fairly competitive for the most part. But I do think Warrington, in terms of the players they've got on paper, compared to the fact that there are going to be 3 main forwards missing for Hull FC, is going to be a huge factor. So that battle in the middle should heavily favour Warrington. I think even if they were included, based on the personnel, Warrington should win the forward battle anyway. But with the players that Hull FC will have missing due to bans, so it's Sal, SASA, and somebody else. Pele. Franklin Pele. Of course it is. How could I forget? Warrington should win the battle through the middle, so field position will be a key factor in this. The only thing that would be a negative for Warrington's field position battle is that Drinkwater has possibly one of the worst kicking games I've ever seen in my entire life. He's worse, and then only slightly better is George Williams. Now, short kicking game, they're both brilliant and really effective. Now, if they find a way to keep getting repeat sets from short distance, they'll wear Hull FC out, especially with the players missing, they're not regulars. So that's how I think Warrington should be looking to attack this Hull FC team. In terms of how expansive they are, when Warrington were a man up, they barely went at Catalans. Barely. They had to go through the middle and ended up with a try. Fantastic. So that might be the way to go. Get Matt Duffy making runs through the middle along with George Williams. Harrison, Musgrove, Vaughan, punching holes through the middle. That might be the way through. That might be it. But Hull FC, defensively, are going to be shaky compared to a Warrington team in attack. Didn't really have much of a go against 12 men. There's a big question mark there for me, but I think, again, as I said, the forward battle is going to be what determines this one. Warrington in defence look okay compared to a Hull FC team where they have basically 3 hookers in the spine. For me, suggests that Warrington should be the better team here. So I'm going to lean towards Warrington. I don't think it's going to be exactly close, but it's not going to be a blowout. As much as, again, Bet365 has a massive handicap in favour of Warrington, for whatever reason. They must not have watched the game last week, but I certainly did. So, a somewhat competitive game here, but I'm going to go with Warrington Wolves 26, Hull FC 18. Next up, we have the Huddersfield Giants at home versus St Helens. Starting with league position, Huddersfield sit in 4th, Saints sit in 1st. In terms of games last week, Huddersfield beat Lee and St Helens beat London Broncos. In terms of power rankings, I have Huddersfield in 7th and Saints in 2nd. There's nothing from last week that suggests to me that Saints shouldn't be favourites for this one. I think they should be pretty comfortable. Now, I did underestimate Huddersfield last week, of course, and they came up with the win. They were one of the upsets that, I guess it was the only upset of last week, because I think most people assumed Lee would probably be fine. So, I'm not going to completely underestimate Huddersfield, but I don't think they're really going to compete at the same level. I can see them putting up points, but Saints for me are just too efficient. And the two things that are just so typical of the Saints team is that Alex Walmsley made the most meters in round 1, and Darryl Clark had a try and assist on his debut and got 3 points for the Man of Steel rankings. So, yeah, such a Saints thing / Warrington Wolves thing to happen for Clark to leave and him to just basically get a man of the match performance right off the rip. So, Saints for me are going to be too efficient in attack, too strong in defence. Saints have this annoying thing where it doesn't matter how quick you spread the ball, their ability to recover is so annoyingly impressive. And I said the exact same thing last year in a video, that it's annoyingly impressive how quickly they're able to recover. It doesn't matter how flat you play in attack, it doesn't matter how much depth you have. You make your way past Johnny Lomax, he recovers straight away. Past Percival, he recovers straight away. It is insane how quickly they recover. And you just find a bit of a gap on the edge. And then there's someone there. You get past the centre, you get past the winger. Don't even worry about the fullback. Jack Wellesby's on his way. But you've already been caught by the second rower. Because their ability to recover is just insane. So I think Huddersfield, looking at their team, they look like a team that can open teams up, and I think they will find ways through St Helens on the edges, but the way that Saints recover is annoyingly impressive. But I do see points for Huddersfield, but I see a much bigger handful for Saints. Nothing that's going to completely eclipse Huddersfield, nothing that's going to be astronomical. I think just a good chunk of tries from Saints is likely to happen this week, based on just how efficient they are, and they don't look particularly different from last season. So I'm going to go with Huddersfield Giants 10, St Helens 32. Next up, we have the Wigan Warriors at home versus Penrith Panthers. Now, this is the World Club Challenge game. I'm not going to go into league position, power rankings, all that kind of stuff. I have an idea. I have a very clear idea of how I think this game is going to go. So, people might think that my prediction is a little bit strange, but just based on the event that this is, what I know about the two teams, I have a fairly confident idea of how this game is going to go. But in terms of the overall result, I'm not that confident. But what I think is going to happen is Penrith, they're not going to take this game majorly seriously. I think they'll just kind of get into the game. They'll go through the motions. They'll just try and chip away. They'll make the runs. They'll have a few goes on the outside. They'll have a decent kicking game. They'll just be a clear class act. Normally how a grand final is in Super League. It's normally quite slow, quite methodical, not really having too many attempts. But I think Penrith will try and chip away. Whereas Wigan, I think they'll go all out very early on. And I think it depends on how well the Panthers can shut down Field. Now, if Field is able to constantly find gaps through and make Penrith turn around constantly, I think Penrith will start to get agitated, because I don't think they'll fully take it seriously. And I think by the time they do, they'll be frustrated and Wigan will have a lead. I think Wigan will find a way to score at least once in this game, probably twice, but then I think Penrith will turn it on. They will be frustrated. I can imagine a few penalties from James Fisher-Harris, including possibly a sin bin for Fisher-Harris as well, because I don't think the Panthers will fully be up to date with the tackling rules of Super League, because I think we're going to be going off the Super League rules now. So the Panthers are going to have a few moments of ill discipline. Fisher-Harris will be involved in a lot of that, I think. So I think Penrith might score most of the tries, but I think Wigan's going to make up for most of it with penalties. And we know that Wigan are the type of team to take penalties. Harry Smith's usually a reliable kicker. He does have his off moments, and did through some parts last season. But I think Harry Smith is going to take 2 points where he can get it. So I do think the Panthers, more tries, but Wigan, more points. Because it's going to be the Panthers settling in, Wigan going all out, and when the Panthers realise that, hang on a minute, we're about to lose twice in a row, we're going to turn this up, whilst that frustration sets in because they're not maybe as comfortable as they thought they'd be. The game's going to open up at that point. It's going to get intense. And I think under Matt Pete, I don't think Wigan's going to get that riled up. They'll have their moments, I think, but if it was any other game, like if it was a league game where these two meet twice a year, every year, you could comfortably say, okay, well, the Panthers are going to win this one. But just based on this event and what it means, I just see Wigan edging this one purely off the ill discipline of the Panthers. That's just how I see it going. So in terms of a prediction, I'm not confident about the score, and this could easily be completely wrong. The Panthers might just show up and completely thrash them, but I think this will be a very close game, mainly aided by ill discipline of the Panthers. So I'm going to go with Wigan Warriors 18, Penrith Panthers 16. Finally for this week, we have Salford Red Devils at home versus Castleford Tigers. Starting with league position, Salford sit in 7th, Castleford sit in 11th. In terms of games last week, Salford lost to Leeds and Castleford lost to Wigan. In terms of power rankings, I have Salford in 6th at the moment and Castleford in 11th. The only key difference in teams, now there's a few players missing for Castleford based on, a red card from last week. I don't think Watts is going to be that big a miss. I mean, yes, he's one of their starters, but I don't think it's really going to have that much of an effect. The only thing that has, to me, maybe knocks a few points back for Salford, maybe 2 points or 4 points at most, is the fact that Briley is going to be missing this one, I believe. So I don't even think it's that big a deal. If it was a much closer game, then yeah, it would be an issue. But looking at these two teams and the way that Salford kind of conducted themselves and held their own last week against Leeds, not to say that Leeds are one of the strongest teams in the league by any stretch, but Salford, they held their own. They seem strong enough in attack. It doesn't seem like they've lost too much of that flair that they've got, because they looked really exciting early on last season. And I guess the changes to the spine, missing out on Croft and Ackers, haven't been such a major change that it's knocked them so far back. I did underestimate them a little bit last week, so I think they'll be pretty comfortable. Now, we weren't expecting too much from Castleford against Wigan. I don't think anybody was. So I think a pretty sizable gap is on the cards here. Salford are, from what I recall last seeing, the 9.5 point favourites on Bet365. I think they could easily win this by 18 at least. And yeah, there's not too much to say on this. In terms of the squads, Salford look much stronger, even with Ryan Briley out. Sneed is going to run the show. Cade Cust, I think, is going to pop up with a few good moments here and there. And overall, Salford they just feel reliable. As of right now, they just give off this aura to me that they're reliable. In games like this where they should win, they'll be fine. Whereas Castleford, they're just down in the dumps. They haven't really got that quality to kind of challenge anybody other than the Broncos, maybe Hull, maybe Warrington, just at this stage right now. But For me, Salford seem reliable. The squad is much stronger. So I'm going to go with Salford Red Devils 26, Castleford Tigers 6. So to recap my winners for this week, I'm going to take Hull Kingston Rovers, Catalans Dragons, Warrington Wolves, St Helens, Wigan Warriors and the Salford Red Devils. If you have any predictions, do let me know in the comments down below. How do you think the World Club Challenge is going to go specifically? Do you think Wigan's got it in the bag this time? Do you think the Panthers are just going to be too strong? Do let me know. If you want to see specific bets that I'm going to be placing, follow me on TikTok at Kinetic Rugby League. In terms of the round 1 bet, just missed out from Lee Leopards losing to Huddersfield Giants. That was the only thing that let us down. So hopefully this week, after some more lessons learned, we can come out with a win and start getting into the green with some profit. So if you want to see the specific bets, you can follow me there, and a video will be uploaded either today or in a couple of days' time. But yeah, if you have any predictions, let me know in the comments down below. But thanks very much for watching this video, and I will see you next time.